Welcome to another episode of What We Didn't Say on Sunday. My name is Jordan Massey. I'm here with our lead pastor at Westside Baptist Church, David Chauncey. And every week that we preach, we come to this show to share with you our sermon leftovers, the things left on the cutting room floor, what we didn't get to. However, neither of us preached this week, but we're still both here because apparently we just can't get enough of the show. So this is going to be a different episode, but still nonetheless, we're here to share with you what we didn't say on Sunday. Hey, Pastor David.
Hi, Jordan. How was your weekend?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, we did Parents Weekend at Palm Beach Atlantic University.
Home of the Sailfish.
Home of the Sailfish, of which you were one.
I am an alumni, absolutely.
Yeah, and my wife is.
And you went to Family Church?
And we went to Family Church. You know, it's good for us to go to other churches from time to time. Mm-hmm. Seriously, it really, you see how other people do things. You get to reminded of what it's like to sit in a pew for an hour, 15 minutes or whatever. And it was extremely refreshing for us. So that was great.
It's been cool to see how our story and y'all's story, God's just kind of interwoven those lines together. And because Sarah's a sailfish.
She was a sailfish, and more than that, she went to that college in 86 as a non-believer.
Yeah.
And just said, do I have to believe any of this stuff? They said, no, come on. And she met the Lord and became a Christian there, started working with the student ministry there, felt a tug on her heart towards ministry. And that's how she ended up in Southwestern, where she knew some of my friends, and we made a connection my second year at Southwestern, and here we are.
Here you are.
33 years later. And here's another fact. At First Baptist West Palm, which started that college back in 60 years ago, whatever.
1968.
Is where she and I went back and got married. So we were sitting in a pew right by the aisle. We walked down to get married. So that whole experience is, whenever we go back to West Palm, Family Church, PBA, it's all good memories. And now we have a daughter attending there, and so that's all excited. And then you, a national treasure, a Westside treasure, graduated from there, and you thought it was a good deal.
Oh man, I am a very proud sailfish. Yeah. So I was gonna say, after Sarah left, then a few years later, I showed up.
You did. You showed up a few years later and met sort of the same way. You just came in. You just showed up.
That's right.
I don't know how you got here, but you got here.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this weekend, we were with 30 of my family members, all staying in a single lodge. It was this old, I think it was like a Methodist camp.
Oh.
That they had said this building was built in 1915, and there were just rooms everywhere. And so it was only my family in this lodge together, all 30 of us, because my grandma turned 80 on September 21st. Awesome. And so we went up there to celebrate her, and we got to do something that we've been wanting to do for a while. You know, you often wait until someone's funeral to say all those great things about them.
Don't wait, yeah.
And we just kind of decided as a family that we weren't going to do that for Grandma. And so we had some time to really share with her what she means to us, and it was special.
That's
really special.
Wonderful.
And we got to do mountain stuff, and I got to climb a mountain with Ellie on my shoulders and Claire on my chest. I was wearing her on the carrier. Ellie was on my shoulders. Probably the greatest physical challenge of my life.
You feeling it today?
I am still feeling it. I think I'll be feeling it for months. So, but we had a really good time, but neither of us were here. So everything we're about to say is what we didn't say on Sunday, because we didn't say anything.
No, we didn't.
On Sunday, at least here at Westside. And we thought it'd be kind of cool if we just did a Get to Know David and Jordan episode. We've got this week, we had Richie Baldwin preaching at the Southwest campus, and he's out for a few days this week, and then I'm out for a few days this week, and Jonathan Phoenix preached here at Newberry Road. So we thought instead of trying to get all of us together, that the two of us could just do a random kind of episode where we just share with our listeners and our church people some things they may not know about us.
Yeah.
What we have maybe said a few times on Sundays, but We don't get the time to
I wonder if there's anything I've left on the table.
About yourself?
Yeah. I've probably
out.
shared way more than I should.
And that's all the things people remember, by the way.
And that's all they remember. Mainly the bad stuff or the mistakes. But let's share some good things, some,
let's do it.
Find some.
Let's do it. So Bo here, our producer, has 12 questions for us because that's a good biblical number.
Yeah.
And so 12 questions for us to answer that will hopefully teach our people a little bit about who we are. So, Bo, why don't you just take it away?
I'm going to take it away, but before we get to the 12 questions, last week, Pastor David said he had a blooper.
That's right.
Wow, I'd almost forgotten
Thank
that.
you for catching that.
No, I had gone to all this trouble to not have a real skeleton hanging on the stage, full body skeleton, because I just knew that I would start playing with its arms and its legs and
Smart.
And,
know your weaknesses.
I knew that it would have lengthened the sermon, so I used a picture of it. But I did start. I thought it would be funny, or I don't even think I thought about it. I just started saying that when you look at a human body, there's design matters, and if things aren't in the right place, it wouldn't function well. And so I was saying, how good would it be if your arm was down here, or your ear was some other place, or if your nose was on the back of your head and you just kept smelling things you left behind. And
oh no.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh no.
And I just stopped and said, "What did I say, Bo?" I don't know. I have to look at the recording, but
I said something like, "I don't know what I just said."
Yeah, I don't know what I just said, but people were laughing, and so nose behind.
Yeah.
None of that stuff should have come out.
Maybe in separate sentences.
Yes, they should not have been combined. But trying to, be funny sometimes can get you in trouble.
That's a dangerous game you played. I think you did about as good as you could have.
Yeah.
That maneuver of a string of different body parts in different places where you could have really stepped in it.
I probably am glad I did what I did.
That's right. All right. Here's the sermon blooper. 12.
And I preached for an hour and 2 minutes. That was another blooper.
I was going to say, when he said, so my sermon wouldn't be longer.
Oh, man. I was thinking about that this Sunday morning. Jimmy was preaching, and he preached like 30, 40 minutes. And I'm like, I preached 20 minutes longer than this? I'm sorry. Just publicly, I want to apologize for that. I know I'm not that interesting, so thank you for sitting there.
Oh, I disagree with the last part there.
Yeah. But we're going to find out how interesting
we truly are. Yeah. Here we go.
All right, first question should be easy. Where did you attend seminary?
Oh, great question.
You already said.
Mine.
Yeah, you did.
And yours.
You did Palm Beach Atlantic College and Seminary.
That's
correct?
right. I did my undergrad there, Biblical and Theological Studies, and then I did a Master of Divinity at Palm Beach Atlantic Seminary.
But you're about to finish one, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm about to finish a Master's of Theology, also known as a THM, from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary.
All right.
You see what I did there?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The
Southern Baptist Theological Seminary.
So back when I did 2 tours of duty at Southwestern. One, when my dad went, from 5 to 8 years old, I lived in seminary housing and remember, Fort Worth fondly. And then went back right after college and went back to Southwestern and did my Master's of Divinity with biblical languages, not without. And
I would say it's not one without.
Yeah, it's not.
But,
Yeah, we're kind of snobby on that. You leave out Greek and Hebrew, what if,
You haven't really been tested.
No.
Yeah.
And then I in that day and time, the doctorate of ministry required you to have 5 years out of seminary.
Yeah.
So after 5 years, I was pastoring in Selma, North Carolina, little church there, and I was pretty close to Southeastern there in North Carolina, and I did a doctorate of ministry there, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Got that in 99.
I think it's still that way in most programs,
Is it?
by the way. You still have to have around 5 years of full-time
Okay.
ministry experience. I know that because my THM started as a doctorate of ministry,
Yeah.
and then I decided to have 2 kids over the course of 11 months.
Yeah.
And that's not very conducive for a doctoral program.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, graciously, my credits were able to transfer over to the THM program, and
Yeah.
I've got one course that actually, hopefully, I'll pass the final exam tonight.
Really?
That'll be my last master's course, and then I've got to write a thesis, and
That's awesome.
then I'll be done. Anyways, great question.
Yeah.
Awesome. Second question, how long have you been a pastor for?
Okay.
Depends on how you define that. I will define it this way. I was ordained in my first job as a student pastor right out of seminary. I received my ordination at McKee Road Baptist Church in 1991. And so that would mean 32 years.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a long time.
Yeah. I'll answer the question the same way.
Yeah.
I was ordained right before I came here
Mm-hmm.
in 2017, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in like May of 2017, I was ordained at First Baptist Church of Delray, where I was serving as youth ministry director at the time, and then came straight here. So that's been 6.5 years or so.
Yeah.
Not that long.
It's funny. I remember, this is a shout out to our staff, but I can remember when I was a youth and music minister, I did those 2 jobs together, and it was a senior pastor, and then I did all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people would say, well, when are you going to go into the ministry? I'm like,
Yeah.
I thought I was in the ministry. So you can be a pastor at that point in that associate pastor role is a vital ministry role. And I started as the lead pastor in 96.
Yeah.
So that's been not quite as many years, but those 5 years I sat under the teaching of a really strong teacher guy, Rick Blackwood, and I really learned a lot that helped me. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I had that period sitting and watching him do that, learn some valuable lessons.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure if you were to go back to how long have you been serving in ministry?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd probably have to go back for most of your life being a PK.
You did, and when I was in college, I taught a Sunday school class at my church,
Yeah.
and did some small group Bible studies on campus. And one summer, I was a children's minister for a summer, and then I was a youth minister for a summer at something Memorial Baptist Church. One of the most horrifying experiences of my life in Richmond, and I've got more stories. I could fill several hours of interesting stories from those days, but that was kind of a big deal back in the day, was a part-time summer youth minister, because people didn't travel as much.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody to do something with their kids all summer.
That's right. Yeah.
And now our summer schedules are so different that a youth minister doesn't have to have. I had like weekly outings every week of the summer as a summer youth guy, and then we had a mission trip and all that kind of stuff. So it was interesting.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Alrighty.
On to the next one.
What is your favorite food?
Oh,
Mm.
easy. Wow. Let me go first.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go bone-in ribeye. No question.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Where do you have that cooked at?
In town, I'd go Mark's Prime. And actually, Mark's probably beats most places that I've been to, even out of town. But yeah, Mark's a bone-in ribeye from Mark's Prime, side of mashed potatoes and some really well seasoned asparagus.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect meal.
Mm. I'm such a food lover. I mean, it's so hard for me to say, but if I had a last meal, or if you could plant me down right today, it'd have to be in somewhere in the heart of New Orleans, around a Cajun piece of fish,
Oh yeah.
blackened with some sort of shrimp sauce or something on it.
Oh yeah.
I love seasoned food like that of
Yeah.
any kind.
Yes. I am also. I mean, your assistant, who's really, just the queen of the office,
Yes.
Diane, she's always teasing me because she processes my visa bill.
Yeah.
And, I eat all over the place because I just like all different kinds of food. And typically people are willing to go on an adventure with me. So
Yeah.
as far as food goes in Gainesville, I don't think I'm an expert, but I've tried just about
Have you?
everything.
Yeah.
So I love all kinds of food. I love Cajun food. When we went to New Orleans together, that was some good food.
So
Good
just putting these two things together, you're taking some of your church members to Mark's Prime Steakhouse on the church visa.
No, I actually go there by myself.
Oh, on the church
On
visa.
the church visa.
Okay. I just want to clarify that.
To be very clear, that is not true. The places I go with church people are typically quite affordable.
Yes. All right. Good.
So,
That's good. That's good. Next, what's your favorite?
is this 4, by the
This
way?
is number 4.
Okay.
Fourth question. What's your favorite TV show?
All time or
It was all time, but to narrow it down, I'd say from the 2000s to 2010 range.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
man.
That's going to be, can we go 2020?
Can we meet in the middle?
2015?
2015.
Okay, that's easier for me. The show I'm thinking about, I'm not sure where it falls.
Of course.
So,
Yeah. What is that?
oh, it's Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I just think perfect television from start to finish.
I would say This Is Us.
This Is Us. Yeah.
I think that Sarah and I I don't know what. It was kind of some of the things they had because they had twins in the show. They had these brother-sister relationships. To me, it was a great view into sociology. I thought they did a good job looking at how parents make mistakes and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. We just loved that show.
We did too for a time. To be honest, that show came out in 2018.
Oh, was that too late?
No, that's fine. It's okay. It's later.
Forgiven.
Yeah, it's forgiven. But I think it came out in 2018, and we were really into it. But then, like many of our people know, like we had a miscarriage, and we were so emotionally raw.
Mm-hmm.
We just could not deal with This Is Us anymore. And so it was almost too good. We were too emotionally invested. So we stopped watching it, and then we just lost all momentum.
Yeah.
So we've never picked it back up since then. But yeah, Breaking Bad for me though, I mean, I just think perfect writing, perfect performances. The cinematography is unlike anything else. It's just beautiful and obviously not a very godly story. But I will say, I do think it is the perfect picture, if there can be a perfect picture, of total depravity.
Yeah.
That, Walter White, I think, is a great example, not of someone who starts good and turns bad.
Mm-hmm.
What I think you see happening is the bad things in him are given nourishment.
Yeah.
That they grow as he gains all this power and influence. And
What time frame did you give us?
2000 to 2015.
Oh, well, one that we just lived for was 24.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember 24?
Oh, it's one of the great shows in the world.
One
That's
of the
one of your
great
favorites, right, Bo?
shows of
Yeah.
all times, 24. And I just thought, and it was a classic moral tale, good
Yeah.
and evil type stuff. And it was pretty mindless, and so we enjoyed that.
That's one of those, every show's kind of the same, every episode's the same kind of formula, right?
Yeah.
Like same kind of beats and points. I mean, that's great television.
Yeah. It was cool.
Alrighty. If you were stuck on an island for 1 year, what 3 people from the Bible are you having with you?
Okay. Jesus included, or do we want to take him off the table to make it more interesting?
I would say always more interesting, but I also feel as if it's sinful to take Jesus out of the
All right. Let's
All right,
agree
let's
we can't
say
say
no
Jesus.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, we can't
All
say
right.
Jesus.
He made the island. He's
Yeah.
he's there with us. Wow, man.
All right, I'll just think of one of the first people that come to mind that's
Yeah.
kind of a sleeper. Is for me, it's Micaiah, who's a prophet in 2 Kings.
Really?
Yeah, I just love it. We actually, for a time, entertained naming a kid Micaiah because we've since moved on from it. But
Is he the guy that fell in a pit with a lion? It's not the same guy.
I think you're thinking of Daniel.
No. No, that's not. I know that one.
I don't know. It might be Micaiah, but here's the moment I know in 2 Kings. Micaiah is brought in by the king so there are all of these prophets, and the king brings in these prophets, and he actually tells his advisors, I want you to bring every prophet from around here to prophesy what's going to happen if I go to war. And they bring in all these yes men. And all these yes men tell the king, you're going to do great. You're going to be successful in battle. And the king says, isn't there someone missing? And the advisors are essentially like, yeah, there's this Micaiah guy, but you don't want to hear from him because he's not going to tell you anything good. And they bring Micaiah in, and Micaiah is one of the few moments in the Bible where someone is sarcastic. The king asks him, how am I going to do? And Micaiah's like, oh, you're going to do great. You're going to be awesome. You're going to be victorious. And the king essentially, this is paraphrasing. This is like major. This is more paraphrasing than the message. But the king is like, really? And Micaiah's like, no, dude, you're going to die. And I just love this moment where he's so, I could use someone who thinks like I do. I'm a sarcastic person. So I love that about Micaiah. So I'd probably go Micaiah. You got to name one. And I'll be thinking while you think of someone.
I'm just going to have to go with Moses.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. I think he and I'd be buds. Friends.
That's fair.
I like his temperament.
Is it the hitting of the rock? Is that what?
Well, I think he was more mild than that. I think he pent things up. I think he just let it. And then he's sort of like me. He would hold it in, and then all of a sudden he'd sin because, instead of dealing with it like he should have.
There you go.
That's my guess.
I'd probably go Adam.
Oh.
But only because I'm just so curious.
Yeah, if he had a belly button.
Yes. I mean, there's so many things I'm curious about. Did he have a belly button? There's also the question of, was he born was he created as a full-grown man?
Mm-hmm.
Or did God create him as we are created?
Yeah. And
he was developed somehow by the Lord as a baby. But also, what was the garden? Like, there's just so many. What was that like, this overlap of heaven and earth? Like, I would have so many questions for Adam that I think I'd have more questions for Adam than, apart from Jesus, anyone else in the Bible. So I'd go Adam.
I would maybe go with David, too. Yeah. David, to me, would have, he was a musician. He could go out and kill us some wild animals to eat. Dude was great with a slingshot. I mean...
Name was David?
Name was David. Now, we could be...
Those are three things you guys have in common. You're musicians, your name's David.
I just think he was a tough guy.
Slingshot?
Sounds like he was a fun guy and loved the Lord. Loved the Lord with all his heart. And he wasn't willing to be, when he saw he was wrong, he was willing to fess up to it.
Yeah.
I kind of like David I think he might be fun on an island.
Okay, so you've got two. I've got two. I've got to think of one more. I would probably go... I think I need to go one of the apostles, one of the disciples.
Yeah, you need to go New Testament at least.
And I think I'd probably go Peter.
Oh.
Because he's in the inner circle.
Yeah.
He also seems like he'd be an interesting guy to be around. And he would do the stories that Peter could tell. Even stories we don't have in the Gospels, right? John says, all of the things that happened, there's not enough books to write all of the things that happened. So just ask Peter.
Boy, he'd be amazing. Amazing. But John outlived him. I think I'd go with John and ask him why his gospel's so different.
That's
number one.
Great, yeah.
And number two, what was it like to be like the best friend with Jesus, the one Jesus loved?
The one Jesus loved.
And
how did it feel to beat Peter in that foot race?
True.
It is John, right? Isn't that what?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Why were you faster than Peter? And what was it like on Patmos? And tell me about the dream, the revelation. I want to hear more about what that was like.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I feel bad we left Paul out, though, because is there a greater Christian?
But the thing about Paul is we already know a lot of what he thought.
Yeah, Paul, he got more space in the Bible than anybody, you know, so true. Sorry, Paul.
All right, those are our three.
Thank you for answering Question number 6. What does your Sunday morning routine look like?
Oh, good question.
That's a great question. You go first.
All right, so my alarm goes off normally 4:45, 5 o'clock. I get up and I go to my coffee, which I set every night. So there's no delay in coffee. And I get my coffee and I go into my office and I start reviewing my sermon. And about 6:30 or so, I walk Charlie and I, and then Sarah and I get ready and come to church. You know what's missing out of all of that? For over 25 years, we had 5 kids to get up and get ready for church, which I know you're now dealing with that. So my Sunday morning routine is very low-key comparatively.
Yeah, well, not on Sunday for me.
Oh.
Because I'm typically out the door on Sundays before
anybody gets going.
Before anybody's awake.
Okay.
So, life at Southwest on Sunday morning, we have our worship team rehearses on Sunday morning. And they used to rehearse at 7:30. Now they rehearse at 8 because they're a little more efficient with what they do. And so I try to be there before they're there. So I'm trying to be at Southwest by at least 7:45 these days, now that they rehearse at 8. So I'm typically out the door by 7 on Sunday morning. And for me on Sunday, it's a get up, get out the door kind of routine.
You don't get up and review or anything like that.
I actually don't review much at all.
Yeah.
Because I get in my head. So if I don't feel too great, if I'm not feeling really confident about my Sunday morning sermon, I'll rehearse in the car as I'm driving to and fro on Sunday. But for the most part, I'm trying to actually think about. I want to spend time in prayer. God, prepare my heart, prepare my mind. But I want to spend very little time actually going through the sermon in my head on Sunday, because I don't want to. It's like talking in your backswing. Or getting golf lessons on the green.
Good analogy.
Me. So I get out the door. I typically come here first to Newberry Road. There's a few things that we print and produce for the Southwest campus, so I'm getting some of those things together. And then I drive over to Southwest, and then I try to just busy my hands. So I keep busy, and that's intentional, so that I'm not just sitting and stewing and thinking about. So some of our setup stuff I'll participate in and be a part of. If someone needs to make the coffee, I'll help make the coffee and get all of our stuff set up outside. And then 9 a.m. we have a time of prayer with all of our volunteers. And so I'm there for that. I lead that time. And then it's go time. Once the service, by about 9:10, we're welcoming guests. But really, Sunday morning for me is a lot of just trying to focus my spirit more than my mind.
Yeah.
So that's what that looks like.
Good stuff.
I did miss one thing.
Oh, yeah.
I do always stop at Dunkin' Donuts.
Do you?
And I get a iced caramel coffee with cream.
Ooh.
Small.
That's important.
It is important. It's part of the routine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Question 7. What's been your favorite sermon series you've ever preached on?
Oh, my goodness. What's the one we just did before this one?
We did a long Revelation one.
That was the one before Blueprints?
I can't remember. What was the one before Blueprints? No, it wasn't. There was one in between.
Designed. Nope. I know it. It's because it has to do with run your race with endurance. It's the MS
I
Smith
love
one.
that Hebrews one.
That is it.
It's Hebrews 11.
Whoa,
it's the By Faith series.
Man, it's so hard for me. My favorite one's almost always the one I'm in.
Correct.
One of my favorite ones that I've ever done, and I think this church, some of them still bring it, is one I did comparing. I did a personality analysis of the disciples.
Yeah.
And walked through those disciples and compared them to, I used golf and golf clubs as my analogy, but I just love human interest, digging into personalities. That was fun. Doctrinally, though, anything out of Hebrews is about my favorite. I love preaching out of Hebrews. But I did one series out of Ephesians before you got here, and used that Watchman Nee book, Sit, Walk, Stand. And so I had 3 sections: sit, walk, and stand. But the church sort of went down in numbers during that time, so I don't know. We had a decrease in numbers after that. I don't know if it was me or the preaching or whatever, but
yeah, I really like the one we're in right now.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun.
yeah,
And so Blueprints has been great. The one that I think about all the time is the Iconic series. We looked at our 7 marks, and looking at the 7 marks of Westside being daily worshiper, servant leader, gospel ambassador, bridge builder, generous giver, iron sharpener, covenant member, right? Those 7 marks. And we looked at the example of Jesus as the ultimate of each of these marks. And my favorite place to preach from is the 4 Gospels. I mean, I just feel like I'm in my pocket when I'm preaching out of the Gospels. And we were in the Gospels that whole time, and I just loved that series. So that's the one, apart from the one we're doing right now, which I'm loving so much. It will be more fun as least favorite. Is that next? Is that question number 8?
How did you know?
Is it really?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it is now.
I struggled through Revelation. I'm just going to be transparent.
yeah.
I mean, that was hard. That was tough. It was so good. I think it was so helpful for our church, but it was at times a slog.
It was extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I got good feedback on it, but it was very hard. And to get that much in that limited space and avoid some of the rabbit trails and try to keep the main thing, it was tough.
Challenging.
I would say that's probably my least favorite preaching experience. Not my least favorite sermons. Some of those sermons really I thought were really good in terms of the impact and people. I mean, I got such great feedback on those, but the experience of producing those sermons was
painful.
Was painful.
Yes. I'm glad we were there together in that.
Yes.
Yeah. Like a band of brothers.
Yes. All right, question number 9. If you could give a TED Talk on any non-religious topic, what would it be?
Oh, easy for me. Using your
Really?
iPhone less. Using your smartphone less. It's become like a pet passion of mine, helping my friends use their phone less.
Man. I think I'd like to do a TED Talk on interacting with other people in public. I just feel
How to or how not
how
to?
how to.
Yeah.
Not that I know, but I just feel like we've lost the art of interacting with other human beings in an encouraging way.
And you know why?
The cell phone.
That's right. So
it would merge.
That's right. We could do
Yeah.
a companion piece together, which, of course, I wanted to do a whole deeper life around this.
Yeah.
And then I ended up doing a whole deeper life teaching older people how to use their phones.
Yes.
And that's a story for another day. But it's the classic example of bad communication. And many of our listeners probably know that story. So
Yeah.
we'll keep moving forward. Question number 10, right?
Question number 10, indeed. Who's your favorite musical artist?
I was listening to U2 yesterday in the car.
Their new song?
Yeah, their new song, but just even some of their old ones from when I was in college. To me, they have stayed true to themselves. They're totally unique. Bono has a haunting lead singer voice.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that they just opened up this venue in Las Vegas shows their incredible value still. There's something but to me, Joshua Tree is like the greatest album ever of non-religious.
And an album that influenced Christian music more than probably any other album.
Yeah,
if you listen to Edge and the lead guitars for U2 and their sound and tone, and you listen to worship music around that time and shortly after,
yeah,
it sounds like worship music, and it's not because U2 was copying worship music.
Yeah, it's them and a tie with David Phelps. No, hey,
David Phelps is coming though.
David Phelps is coming, and I will tell you this: that as a young Christian man growing up, I loved music, and I loved the Bill Gaither Quartet.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff they did back in the day, and they had these incredible variety of unbelievable voices, like Steve Green and Larnell Harris and David Phelps, one of the greatest human voices you'll ever hear. He's coming to Westside in November. I love to hear sing incredibly gifted singers like that, because I'm mainly male. I mean, female singers are good too, but Sarah gave me, as when we were out at the convention, as a birthday present, bought tickets to go hear, what's his name? Andrea Bocelli. Another heavenly voice. Some of these voices, I'm like, it's just not fair. And it's so musicians that have those unbelievable skills, whether it's they can play a guitar like no one else.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed by those virtuoso skills.
Yeah, I mean, I've told you this before. I think I may have mentioned it here, that my dad, who passed when I was 7, that he would travel with evangelists and he sang Southern gospel music. I mean, that was like one of the things he did, and I've got one of his albums of like his original music that he wrote and produced and sang, and so there's a part of me, like there's a 5-year-old child in me that when I hear Southern gospel music, it just ministers to my soul. Yeah. And so I love that kind of music, even still to this day. But I would say my favorite is John Mayer, and I grew up
virtuoso.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I grew up. My brother is a musician. He's incredible guitar player. I hope Jake's not listening. He's an okay guitar player if he is listening, and just a great musician. And so he grew up listening to these blues artists. That was like his favorite. And because I'm his little brother, I listen to everything he listens to. Yeah. And some people may not know, but John Mayer is a world-renowned guitar player. Yeah. He's one of the greatest blues guitarists of all time. Like, I think most people would at least put him in the top 10 of great blues guitarists. Mm-hmm. The guy was just traveling with Dead & Company. Like, he toured with Dead & Company as their lead guitarist for, I think, 4 or 5 years.
Who's Dead & Company?
Well, that's for another podcast.
Okay. It doesn't sound like you should be traveling with him.
That's right. That's fair. But anyways, so John Mayer has always had a really special place. I probably listen to him. I'm pretty eclectic in what I listen to, but if there's an artist that I listen to more than anyone else, it's easily John Mayer. And I'm going to see him again next Friday the 13th.
Oh, wow.
He's going to be at the Amalie Arena. He's doing this tour. It's called the John Mayer Solo Tour. Mm-hmm. So it's just him.
Wow.
Well, he's got an opening act, but his act is just him and a guitar and a piano and no band. It's kind of cool.
That's impressive.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to it.
He gets all the money for himself that way.
That is true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Question 11. What is your favorite book of the Bible?
Again, that varies from time to time, but, I just love the book of Hebrews. To me, it explains the Old Testament and just sets the framework of how Christ, how the cross fulfilled the Old Testament and justified us. But man, how do you give up on Romans and choose Hebrews? And how do you not go with a gospel?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah, I would say I'm with Pastor David. If I could say maybe there's one that's more often my favorite than others. It's kind of always a circulating thing, but it's probably the Gospel of John. And I think the Gospel of John just tells the story of Jesus in such a unique way, obviously, because he's not one of the 3 synoptics, and that's why, because he's telling the story in a unique kind of way. But I just love the way in which he shows us Jesus as a friend. And there's all of these really, that we don't get in the other Gospels, these intimate encounters with people. And so a lot of these stories we know of Jesus and Nicodemus, Jesus and the woman at the well, Jesus and Peter in John 21, his restoration, like all of these really one-on-one conversations. You just see Jesus' heart, I think, unlike the synoptic gospels. And so, there's so many And the farewell discourse is just beautiful, and it's amazing. You know, it's John's gospel is paced. It tells the story really from creation, pre-creation, to resurrection and ascension, and much of that story, of course, is this 3-year period. But then you have John 13 to 17. Of that, 5 chapters, 13, 14, 15, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 5 chapters.
He's just
devoted
talking,
to
praying,
the upper room.
Yeah.
His words for his friends, his prayers for us. I mean, Gospel of John.
Powerful. Last question. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received from a church member?
Oh, wow.
Duck. No.
Duck.
Well, man.
Neither of us have received any good advice from church members, if you can't tell. That's what's happening. I mean, I think I've been encouraged and counseled so often. But I don't know if it's a piece of advice, but the thing that really stands out to me, we had several years ago this church member, this older lady who passed, and I had the privilege of being with her just hours before she died, and I was just struck by how well she died, and that kind of changed the perspective for me in some ways. I mean, it's something I always knew to be true, that you should live your life to die well, and but to see that on display in the peace that she had and her family that was around her. And so I think Peggy's death, strangely enough, was some of the best advice I've ever received, in that I learned so much about how to live in the way that she died. So that's what comes to mind.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny because I don't get a lot of what you would call advice. I've been told what to do a lot, but I don't consider that being the same as advice. Advice being some, but I had one guy that it sticks in my mind. When I left my last church, he said, you know, when God calls you somewhere, you just keep going and don't look back. You know, and his whole point was, because I knew it was hurting people that I was leaving, and I felt, you know, and he just said, do not look back. You're answering a call. You just keep moving forward. And I knew what he meant by not looking back is don't, live in regret or grief over all of this kind of thing, and which I tend to do. And then maybe another one is I've had some folks over the years really remind me to take care of my family, you know, to make sure I didn't sacrifice my family on the altar of the church.
Yeah.
And so those would stick out because a lot of times it would be the opposite that I would hear from others. And so you're kind of battling, but sometimes they would just say, hey, you're going to get pressured, but make sure you pastor your family well. That's probably top.
Yeah, amen. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bo. Well, thanks for taking us on this journey. We are going to end our episode a little. This has been a unique episode all around, but we're going to end the episode with something even more unique, and share with you a video, a testimony. Right, Bo? This is a testimony.
Missions recap interview for 2 mission trips, Vancouver and New Orleans. And so that's where we're going to go next. Bo's going to take us there. But before we go there, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And this has been an unorthodox episode, but hopefully you've gotten to know us a little bit better. And we think this is why we share stories about ourselves on Sunday morning, in part because the better you know us, then the better you can understand the kinds of things we're trying to say on Sunday morning. So hopefully this has been helpful, if anything entertaining. And we're looking forward to this Sunday where we're both preaching.
Yes.
So next week we will be back to share with you what we didn't say on Sunday.
Hi, my name is Julia Higginbotham. I'm a missions intern here at Westside, and we're starting a new segment of the podcast today where we're talking with some people who have returned from mission trips with our church.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackson Martin and I am a college student who served on the Vancouver mission trip this past spring.
And I'm Jacob Kling, who had the privilege of going on a New Orleans mission trip for spring break as well.
To start off our time together, tell us a little bit about who you were working with and what kind of work your team was part of.
Yeah. In New Orleans, we partnered with 2 of our local churches and some of the other ministries that are involved in the seminary down there. So some of the work that we got to do included port ministry for New Orleans, one of the biggest ports. One of the local churches was recently constructing a new building we had to help with, and then also helping with community events the churches were putting on, like crawfish boils and Parents' Night Out. So we had the opportunity to do a lot of manual labor, but also a lot of community outreach throughout the neighborhoods they were in.
That's awesome. What about you?
Yeah, so I was at I was in Vancouver, and we were at Every Nation Vancouver. It's the church up there, partnering with Christy Crowder, who is our partner. And what we were doing, campus outreach, and just community building, and all of that. We got to do things like gig night, but I mean, really, it was a majority of just bonding with the team and just going out to campuses and asking how we could pray for them and care for them.
Yeah, that's really cool work. What kind of impact do you feel like your team was able to have while you were on the field?
The impact we had was really just community building. I know that whenever Anna Marie, who is not here but was with us in spring and she went back in the summer, we met with a dude named Desant, and he wasn't a Christian. He had been involved in the community, but through just building connections and all that, gospel conversations we're allowed to have, and then he actually just gave his life to Christ this past summer.
Yeah, we had a lot of impacts in many different forms, I feel. Like I said, we did a lot of manual labor, which is convenient in a very immediate sense, but also you could tell that it just gave people a lot of rest that they might not have had before with a lot of those ministries. And then as far as a community outreach standpoint, just walking through some of the neighborhoods, and the 2 local churches we partnered with were especially trying to reach out to their communities, especially the one that was being newly constructed. So being able to just make that good perception, make those good connections to start really help them out and help the people in the neighborhoods to just get a good feel of the good that their community is going to have from those churches.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And so at Westside, our heart is really just to reach the nations, but also to reach our neighborhoods. So how did the mission trips that you went on to New Orleans and Vancouver, how did they encourage you toward our mission of joining everyday people on the journey to life's greatest potential in Christ?
Yeah, when you go to these mission trips and you spend a dedicated amount of time, like a week we did for spring break, even in a place in America like New Orleans, you see the brokenness of people and just the weight of that and the urgency that the gospel needs and has for a reason. And so while you're there, you're thinking this is a broken place, and I can't imagine feeling this dark in a place. But then you realize it's not very different from places that we can interact with here in Gainesville. So you come back with a perspective of just feeling the weight and the heart that Jesus has for others, and trying to do the same for others in Gainesville.
Our time at the University of British Columbia really just showed that there's a lot of people who don't know Christ, and that these conversations that we were having aren't that they're not as hard as we built them up to be. And so just coming back here and realizing that I can do exactly what I did in Vancouver, in Gainesville, is it was a mental barrier that's been broken, and that has been very helpful.
So in a couple weeks, our church is going to have Mission Fest, which is going to be such an exciting time for just the church body to hear about maybe upcoming trips and ways to live on mission here or in other places. But we're going to hear some previews of trips for the next year. So what would you say to somebody who's going to Mission Fest and is maybe considering going on mission somewhere in 2024?
I would say that is a phenomenal idea. There's often, especially as students, we can view, spring break as just wanting to go out and relax and have fun. And, I think serving is fun. You are hanging out with a bunch of people who are like-minded with one goal, but you're also there with communion and fellowship, and just growing those relationships is a great time.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of doubts going in, at first from an outside perspective about the rest you may get and how you use your time, but it's a great way to spend time bonding with people of similar or different ages, and being able to serve like that comes back so rewarding and fulfilling long term. You come back with a much fresher perspective on the world, and gives you just a fun time as well.
For sure. All right, thanks so much for coming on.